When it comes to first aid and safety giveaways that leave a lasting impression, there's one name you can trust: Safety Made. Looking for fast turnaround? Safety Made offers deep inventory and quick production times to keep your project on schedule. Want something truly memorable? Customize any of our first aid kits to create a unique gift that showcases your brand. Need it fast? Rush service is available for those last-minute opportunities and tight deadlines. And every kit is packed with trusted brand name components, delivering quality and confidence your customers will appreciate. Safety Made, your trusted source for first aid kits in the promotional products market. Visit Safety Made today and make safety your next great promotion.
Hello, and welcome to Promo Perspectives. My name is Nicole Cook, and today I am joined by three very special guests to talk about PPAI's Responsibility Summit. If you guys wouldn't mind all introducing yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about what your involvement is with the conference.
Sure. I will kick off. My name is Liz Wimbush. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Responsibility here at PPAI. So I lead our sustainability, responsible sourcing, product responsibility, and regulatory update kind of education for our members. And Responsibility Summit is where all of those disciplines really come together. So I help shape the agenda with our volunteer work group, recruit speakers, and make sure that attendees leave with really practical information that they can actually use.
Awesome. I'll go next. I'm Laura Smith, and I am the Head of Sustainability and Compliance for Storm Creek. We're a women-owned B Corp supplier, apparel supplier, and I've attended Sustainability or Summit, Responsibility Summit. I think this will be my third year this September. And I have just found it so incredibly useful. I'm new to the promo industry, but not new to sustainability and compliance, but it's been just so incredibly informative. So I feel like it's just my favorite event of the year to attend.
Hi, I am Lenny Polakoff. I'm one of the partners at Zagwear. We are a PPAI distributor with offices throughout the United States and Europe. And one of my roles and responsibilities is overseeing our compliance and sustainability program globally for Zagwear. I'm also a member of PRAG, which our group has the responsibility of planning Summit every year. So I am going on, I think, my 8th or 9th Summit this year. And have been intimately involved in many of those years in the planning and speaker organization. So Product Responsibility Summit is something near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. Well, Liz, I'm going to start it with you first, being at PPAI. Can you just kind of talk about what Summit is and how would you describe it to someone who's never heard of it, never been?
Yeah, so Summit is an educational and networking conference that we put on every year. So this year it is in Denver, which we're very excited about it. And it is the industry's kind of premier event focused on responsibility in business, kind of writ large. So unlike a trade show, it's intentionally smaller and discussion oriented. We bring together experts on sustainability, product safety, regulatory compliance, responsible sourcing. We speak to supply chain issues. So people come together to solve problems, share their problems, and talk through them, not just listen to presentations, which I think is a really important distinction for Summit.
Yeah.
It's less about kind of the theory and much more about what you can actually be doing when you get back to your desk.
Which is really awesome. And kind of along those lines is like, who exactly is it designed for? Because just on this call, we have our trade, we have supplier, we have distributors. So who exactly should be going to this?
I feel like the benefit of learning from all of us, learning from distributors, learning from a supplier perspective,
yes.
service providers are there, like hearing everyone's challenge and how everyone is solving it and approaching it, from large size companies to small size companies. Like, it's just so incredibly informative to hear all those perspectives and meet those people working it and actually doing it at the same time. There's just such a benefit to the in-person learning and it not being a trade show, but actually more like continuous education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'll just, I'll add on, in addition to the content that's covered, it's also provides a great resource to engage with speakers and category experts. And honestly, I've developed relationships that have been deeply valuable over the past, 8 to 10 years that I've been attending. So it's just a wealth of information as Laura and Elizabeth have alluded to, that just cover a lot of really relevant topics. And then really, as Laura had indicated, really challenges that all companies are kind of universally facing. So it's well worth attending.
And I think for who should attend, I feel like, it's really, if you're touching sustainability or responsibility or compliance at all in your role, and there's companies who are lucky enough to have some departments doing it, or somebody whose responsibility is it, or it's part of somebody else's, just part of what their day is, and they've got other roles that they take on. But if you're touching it at all, it's a must attend event, because it's just so critical what you're going to learn, absorb. And then to be in a room of other people who are doing it, it's, I think part of what I enjoy so much about it is it's the me's and all of the other, companies in the industry that you get to connect with. So if your job at all touches sustainability, responsibility, compliance, I think it's just such a benefit to be able to be there.
Yeah. I also think what you just said is really cool. And this is a slight detour, but just a plug for PPAI in general and the conferences that they host. I really appreciate how they offer so many different conferences for all of these groups of people and different roles within the organization, and that they are so unique from each other because they really serve those, communities as well. So that was just a kudos to PPAI for hosting this. So this one I'll open up to everybody, but why are the topics discussed, like sustainability and compliance and product safety, et cetera, why are those important to discuss?
I was just going to say the regulatory landscape is changing so quickly that and I think, Lenny, this is something that you're an expert in as well, especially being involved with PPAI so long, that I'd love to hear your opinion on it. But to me, that's the first thing that comes to mind, is really just like how fast things are changing.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I think the regulatory landscape, both federally and, both on the federal and state level, as Elizabeth has alluded to, is ever changing. So, at a bare minimum, just being able to keep up on those changing regulations is obviously, critically important. But I think, as you look a little bit deeper, I think, and I'm speaking really from a distributor side of things a little bit more, as we have got our clients' interests, always front and center. Brand reputation is more valuable and more fragile than ever. And, in today's world, news travels like wildfire. And from a consumer perspective, doing the right thing is no longer just about ethics. It's about trust. And consumers are increasingly choosing brands based not only what they sell, but what they also stand for. And every interaction, product, every business decision, contributes to its brand's reputation. And those reputations can change overnight. And, they, as a distributor, those brands put a lot of trust in us, and ensuring we're doing the right thing is critically important.
And distributors are playing that role of that bridge between brand and supplier. And it's now become really risk management and risk assessment. And there's a huge role in that. And then sitting on the supplier side, being aware of what's changing and being aware of what you need to know, of what you're reporting on and what you're working on. And it's really, from a supplier perspective and a sustainability perspective, it's gone from being a nice to have to a must have. And, what was once considered, maybe a vitamin, it's become a painkiller. You have to have this, and you have to be doing this, and you have to have that transparency in your supply chain. You have to have these things. You have to know what's coming. You have to be able to share it, and you have to be able to provide it to that distributor so that they can share it with their end user and be compliant and be able to share it, because news travels so fast. You don't want to have the problem happen. And this is where you're going to get the information and you're going to find out, what you be able to do to future proof. And that's why it's so important to attend these things.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That business resiliency piece too. I think you both spoke to that really well, that it's not just like doing the right thing anymore. It's really about proactive business resilience. And that, we see time and time again that companies that are preparing early spend less time and money reacting later, especially in a world when news travels so fast, like Lenny said.
Yeah.
Right. And, and I'll say one more thing. Like, authenticity matters. Brands that overpromise or engage in greenwashing, they lose credibility. They lose credibility quickly. And it's not just brands, consumers, employees are consumers too. So strong corporate values, helping attract, retain, top talent. So it matters across the board. It's a really critical part of a brand's business proposition.
That's kind of, you guys are kind of speaking to it already, but would you say what you're discussing now, like news traveling fast, the regulatory changes, all that stuff, like, are those the biggest challenges that you're seeing? Is there anything else that you feel like are challenges in this area that companies are trying to navigate today?
Yeah, I think it covers a lot of that, like keeping up with the constantly shifting regulatory landscape, not just, yes, primarily federal and state level here in the US, but around the world, and how that impacts consumers and buyers and the decisions that they're making. That, Laura, you spoke to supply chain transparency. How we manage that data as an industry without just overwhelming everybody is definitely a challenge. And the greenwashing, like you said, Lenny, like separating the really meaningful actions from the noise and knowing where to focus. Like, we have limited resources and teams. Something that, Laura, you said that I agree with. Summit really brings people together who are often operating as a team of one. And you get to have that community. We have limited time and resources. So if we can get a bit of a head start on knowing where to focus that, because you can't do everything all at once, obviously. So figuring out what really matters.
Yeah, I think the education component is so important to both become educated, but then also be able to educate the consumer so they know what to look for. From a greenwashing perspective on down, it's just so important. You can't expect an end user or a distributor to know what to look for from a greenwashing perspective if you don't know. I mean, it's so important to have that education component.
Yeah. I also, again, you guys are like segueing so perfectly here, but talking about the discussions, you said at the beginning of this is more of a discussion-based event, and you guys also kind of touched on the networking. I want to dive into that part a little bit more and talk to you about, like, what is the networking like? Like, what are people taking away and gaining from these? Like, what types of conversations are happening when you're off, at this event?
Being newer to the promo industry, I've been one of the ones where I walk in and I feel like I just immediately am making these connections with people where I'll recognize the company or I'll recognize the distributor and make the connections that I am then talking to those people throughout the year later. And it's just, I see them the next year at, at the conference, or I'll see them at Expo. And it's built such a relationship to be able to bounce ideas off or challenges off of, or be able to have just this connection where often you're a department working, in a silo, and to be able to have that connection and that relationship and that network. And there's a couple of people who I look forward to seeing. I mean, a lot of people I look forward to seeing year after year, but there's a couple of people who I go out of my way to make sure I say hi to year after year, because it is just such a relationship building event. Sorry, go ahead, Lenny.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I think, to me, the networking and the people you meet, the category experts, the industry experts, speakers and people that you wouldn't normally engage with on a daily basis within this industry, because we do bring in quite a number of speakers, and Elizabeth may have, those more exacting numbers, but that are not, directly tied to our industry. From a regulatory standpoint, a legal standpoint, we've had, the chair people of the CPSC, we have people from the FDA. So, your ability and access to meet those people and then continually, be able to engage with them after Summit is critically important. And then within the industry, getting to know, people for us on the supplier side of things, when we have an issue or we have a client request that, requires information that may be out of the norm or out of, standard information that a supplier may provide, especially on factory audit sides and, things like that, having those relationships and being able to pick up the phone and, have a conversation with somebody who you've spent time with is critically important. So the information, the sessions, the speakers, that, we all enjoy during Summit is half of it, but the networking opportunity, the relationships, I think is of equal value for sure.
And the thought that goes into the speakers and the topics. I have the opportunity to sit on the Sustainable Action Group with Liz, and the thought and time that goes into building out what we recommend as being the content and the speakers for the potential sessions. There's so much thought involved in deciding what we're going to talk about or recommend to talk about that goes into it. So it's really, really thought about from a lot of different perspectives on what is the most critical things to talk about and bring to the table so that we're using everyone's time the most effective way possible.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add, I think it's really, I don't know if it's entirely unique, but it's fairly unique from my perspective to see this year after year. We're bringing a lot of competitors together, whether it's supplier competitors or distributor competitors, and these people sit across from each other at the table and discuss shared challenges in a way that is very collaborative and very future oriented. Like it's everyone collectively working to better the industry, and that I don't see a lot. So I think those conversations, it's just important to highlight that piece of it. And it's really, it always leaves me inspired that we're, we're addressing this together. Nobody feels alone in it.
Yeah, I love that. That is, I think that is very special and unique to this industry in general, just being so it's such a relationship focused industry. So that I think that's amazing. Is there anything that, not to give anything away for free, but is there any topic or session or anything like that you're especially excited to discuss this year?
Yes, I think, we always have regulatory updates. That's an important piece. We're going to have more of them this year because of just how the landscape has been providing us with a lot more content for that. A lot of guidance around, we're talking a lot about packaging EPR. That is something that has been really important to focus on. And I think now that we're a year into that, kind of some best practices and learnings that we could share insights on. There's a lot we're talking around. Shockingly, I think it's almost illegal to have a conference this year without talking about AI.
Knew it.
AI. But from the perspective of responsible AI use. So what are the ethical and environmental considerations that go into it? What are some AI tools that are being used in sustainability and compliance tech stacks to really help leverage that tool appropriately? Circularity is a big topic that comes up again and again in the sustainability piece. And then, not shockingly, PFAS. PFAS and CPSA labeling, a lot of the really important product safety pieces that have been the foundation for this event, just building off continually.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm always interested to hear how others are navigating, the challenging regulatory environment. Obviously, as Liz mentioned, PFAS, extended producer responsibility, even Prop 65. And then for us, as we operate globally, we're starting to incorporate more sessions that relate to the global landscape, which is also particularly interesting, interested for me, to me. So, those are the sessions that I'm always, laser focused on paying attention and taking a lot of good notes.
Same thing. We're definitely looking at the global responsibility piece, and with a supply chain that we are looking at the transparency piece of it and the reporting piece of it and PFAS and being an apparel brand. It's textile EPR is a big one for us and all of that evolving. So I can't wait for September and be able to dive right into it.
That's awesome. Well, Liz, I started with you. I'm going to close with you to say if somebody is considering attending, how do they do so?
I think first go to our website, ppai.org. We have a page for our events where you can click on Responsibility Summit. There's a button to register, but all the details are there. And as the agenda is firmed up, we post details there with speakers and the different sessions you can expect to join. And I would just encourage people, if they have any questions or they're not sure about the value or if they're the right person to attend, reach out. I think it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm happy to speak to any PPAI member about and make sure that they feel like they're making an informed decision. It's not about checking a sustainability or a product safety box. It's really about helping your business stay informed and reduce risk, like we've talked about, and really build those stronger relationships that our industry is really built on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, all three of you. This was a lot of fun. I enjoy every single time that I get to do one of these podcasts. So, and learn more about these conferences. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us today. And to our listeners, we will see you back on our next installment of Promo Perspectives.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.